if you want to become like Mongraal and see the talent that he has, like, what do you think he did? What do you think he did? Best way to do that is to be in a forced situation where who you're fighting is literally an unstoppable wall that will not break unless you start doing the right things, right? That way there's not this false positive feedback loop where you're doing wrong things or you're doing stuff that would get you killed, but you're getting away with it because you're fighting some shitter and you're fighting someone that, like, one of your weak friends who you're just trying to beat up on to gain some confidence boost or something. Like, you're trying to really get an ego boost from it. But at the end of the day, if you put your ego aside, you humble yourself and you really just understand that losing is the path to getting better, like, fundamentally. Because if you're not losing, then you're not fighting someone good enough, then you will absolutely improve. It's just reality, guys. It's so like crazy how simple it is. This isn't my typical video. I think most of you guys will very quickly see why that is, but I just wanted to make a video to not only inspire you guys to really push yourself mechanically, but to also understand that there's examples in here that are like insane, bro. So if you guys don't know the backstory to this YouTube video, he's playing with two other pros, Mitro and X8, and they both die. And Mongraal, being the toxic guy that he is, he just doesn't reboot them and just fully WQs the entire lobby. There's not gonna be too much off spawn, honestly. I don't believe that there's gonna be too much off spawn because it's just very, very simple stuff. But there is a current pattern that happens whenever you need to fight multiple people that I feel like most people neglect. So if you need to fight multiple people, one thing that you definitely want to do is to work your way top down, right? What I mean by that is the best position that you can be in any sort of solo duo, solo trio, solo squad situation is to be on height. And this is naturally, I'm speaking about a mid-game fight right here. But if you're up here and then there's like 3 people below you and you slowly 1v1 each one and you work your way down, that's significantly better. And also another point to that, like, you obviously want 1v1s. You don't necessarily want a 1v3 all at once because that's going to naturally get you killed. And the best way to really split them up and keep them separate is to be on height, because if they want to get to you, they have to 90 up to do so. And when they're 90ing up, what are they naturally doing? They're splitting up, because you can't really 90 together as a team, right? So they have to 90 separately, which split them up. And so if you just focus the second height guy, always, right? And that dynamically changes. So second height guy might be this guy for at one moment, and then 5 seconds later it might be someone different. But all you need to do is just work your way top down. I definitely want you guys to watch how Mongraal actually takes on multiple people very consistently. This is no different than just taking multiple 1v1s. Like, a lot of people see this as like, holy shit, he just killed like 10, 12 teams. Like, he killed so many teams. Like, how does he do it, right? He's taking 1v1s. Like, show me a situation in this entire video where he takes on 2 people at once. It's very rare. He takes them all at 1 by 1. And another factor to that is his aim. Like, you'll see, this is not actually the example, but you'll see in the rest of this video, like, how good his aim is. Chances are, guys, you've probably seen this video already. It has 22 million views on YouTube. It's insane, right? But for the most part, okay, I actually talk about this concept. This is actually pretty straightforward. Donnie does this a lot, right? And when I used to live coach Donnie, I noticed this particular thing about him when he tried to drop 20 bombs in game 1 of Solo Cash Cup with. I would notice that he would make wide edits very frequently on the first trade. And what he does there is, if he kind of reacts to what happens after the fact, and he's also depending on the fact that he's going to hit a really hard shot very consistently, which I think Donnie and Mongraal can actually say very confidently that they're going to be able to hit a hard shot. So what's really important is understand your skill set. What are you really strong at? If you're really strong at peaks, use it, abuse it, do peaks often. Is your aim really good? Make a wider edit and just gamble the fact that you're just gonna hit them hard, right? And it's not like, you know, Mongraal standing still or not crouching or not strafing. It's just in the name of getting the fight done quickly. You're gonna do a very hefty trade, and then if you don't lose HP and you hit them 100, then you can just make a second wide edit and end the fight right away. Now, especially in this season where there was Siphon, this is better and easier to do. But in general, like, there is a reason why people make wide edits on the first trade pretty confidently. It's because they're making the gamble. It's almost like an ego peak of, hey, I'm going to hit you really hard, and I'm very confident that I'm going to do that. And so if it's a really bad trade, which again, for people that are really good aimers like Mongraal and Donnie, it's not the worst thing, because I'm pretty confident that both of them will hit hard shots. In this instance, unironically, or rather ironically, he hits 32, so that sucks. But I mean, I think it's actually a pretty good strategy, because in arena and ranked and games like this, or in a WQ match in tournaments, it's really important that you end the fight quickly. And I think by this time, anyone watching this video can understand why that is, because naturally third parties are coming, and you don't want them to be interfering in your fight. Like, again, Mongraal just 1v1s a whole bunch of people, and the best way to not end up in a 1v1 is just involve a third party. So let's end the fight quickly, you know what I mean? Now, like, when there is a right hand peek to be done, then, you know, that this is really, really good. Another small point that I will make before I, you know, miss it, is that another reason why you should make wide edits on the first trade, it's much harder to take the wall. So if the enemy's waiting, like for example, if you were to make a window here, there is counterplay. There absolutely is counterplay. In this instance, the enemy has to handshake the trade. But in the other instance where Mongraal makes a window, the enemy can totally pump the wall because it's super weak from the edit, can totally pump the wall and take it, right? And then now your fight has elongated because the enemy has just slowed you down a lot. So because of that delay, right? So we really must understand why wide edits have benefit. There is situational benefit for wide edits and we must use that, right? So I mean, Mongraal really understood this and this is why he's been doing it for a long time. I feel like even if he may not necessarily understand consciously, like he can't necessarily explain it to someone, I feel like through his experiences, he really uses them well and appropriately. In this instance, it's really easy to do a right hand peek, so why not? It's not like you're gonna go out of your way to make a wide edit and like not peek if a peek is right there. Another instance of going top down, like try to work on. I think he drops too much here. I think he could, you know, like you definitely want to pump the guy, but I think dropping down that far is crazy. Especially when you put yourself in between two people, which is why it gets a little bit sketchier. I totally think this is the case. So if he pumps the enemy and then stays 2 blocks up, I think he's perfectly fine. He just needs to maintain height a little bit. I mean, this just goes to show that if you take a fight and then the enemies are really close together, even on the same layer, it does get sketch at times. I think if he just stayed up a layer, like instead of dropping all the way down, he would have been completely fine. Didn't have to heal. Fight could have ended faster. All of the above. Really got shot here, manages both people, and really what he's using is the audio cues. So for example, just listen, I'm gonna turn it up here, okay? It's pickaxe sound on the right, but there's gunshots in front of you. So visual to understand that this guy's actually, you know, trying to pressure your front wall. So he goes for the shot and stares off the second guy. Does both at once. And I think that's really good multitasking from Mongraal, and most pros actually have this ability. If you watch their end games, it's really telegraphed there. But Mongraal was really good at managing multiple different things at once. If you ever watch Mongraal's end game, I think you'll see exactly what that is. But yeah, I mean, audio cues are very important, and I think people always blame audio to a degree. They're like, oh, like I have audio issues. Like, yeah, maybe an end game when there's like 7 different audio clips playing, sure, but not in this instance. I really don't think that it's the case that you're gonna miss out on audio in a mid-game fight.
And that's not even a joke.
But yeah, like you should take advantage of it and use it. Why not? So he picks off one. There's one guy left. He's trying to find him, right? And a lot of people walk up to walls too, like carefree. I think you could spray them to not only bait the edit, so it gives away the enemy, but as soon as they bait the edit and then you block the shot, now you have a weak wall that you can aggress on. You have an opening, right? And so you don't want to aggress on this by pickaxing necessarily. Like I feel like you could spray and trying to reveal him either through the transparency, but also baiting the edit. You actually want to bait the edit if they're in strong builds. In this case, he owns some of these builds, so. But yeah, he's totally trying to bait him out. You want to notice that like he's not just running through the builds, because that's really sketch, especially if you don't know the location. He's really trying to find him first. Gets the wall. Again, wide edit, same thing, because window has counterplay, and window also puts you in a situation where you may not be able to see them right away, and that's very sketch. I don't think you want to do that. You do want to like pay attention to what your opponent's doing, because if your opponent's just standing there with the shotgun, then it is a little bit sketch. But again, pay attention, have some discretion with when you do these edits. But I think if you take the wall and you feel that it was surprising, like you caught your enemy off guard, chances are you're probably going to get a surprise jump on them because of the fact that they're just holding blueprint, like ready to react to you getting the wall. So as long as you have a shot reset ready, like for the most part, and you edit pretty quickly, I think you can actually get away with it. Again, like just see it through your experience. Like once you experience it a little bit, you'll definitely see exactly what I'm talking about. A couple things to talk about here. So like as he's flying through the air with the shockwave, like he blocks off the third party. He's getting shot by someone else, just blocks off the third party. Also opts to like walk around, even though this is a left hand angle. This is the box, right? Like let's try a bird's eye view, right? Bird's eye view, which is this is the box, right? Mongraal standing right here. He's getting third party from this direction, right? What are the sidelines of the third party? It makes more sense, even though it's a left hand, to chase your enemy around this way, force him out into the middle of the third party, so that if the third party wants to contribute, he has to shoot the enemy. Whereas if Mongraal naturally wants right hand peek and chooses to go out the right, which is normally the case, but with this third party in play, I don't think you can necessarily do that. Use the box as cover and choose to go around the left. I think this is a very conscious decision by Mongraal to play safe side, as I would call it, and put the enemy in the middle instead. And you've seen examples of this. Is a very old concept. It's nothing new. You've seen examples of Unknown Army doing this back in the day. But yeah, absolutely. Like now he's a little bit risky, but like he's in a risky spot. But I think he feels pretty safe. There's some natural tree cover, defense cover, and just ends the fight quickly and then boxes up. One thing that you'll see him do all the time is like, and I think this is very normal, but very, very underrated, especially in endgame, is to just like make a box after you kill someone every single time. Like the worst thing you can do is step into the builds without necessarily space for yourself, and in endgame that's how you die. So for example, I'll give you a really quick example. If you want to jump into someone's box because maybe you have information that they're low, maybe you heard them get cracked, maybe you were the one that actually shot them to whites, but I think if you really want to jump in, first thing you need to do after you get the kill and secure the kill is to continue spraying your AR or SMG and spray out a wall to make another box. Because sitting in that box and healing and looking through the loot while you own nothing, it's not like, I'm not saying that someone's gonna edit on you, obviously you've killed that person, but the most important thing that you have to do is make sure you're safe. And the best way to do that is controlling edits and making sure you actually own edits so you can go out in any which direction that you please after the fact if someone wants to third party you. And you just need to be ready, man. Like I think a lot of people are not. This is the main thing. People are not ready for the worst case scenario to happen. And if you just always assume worst case scenario, then Fortnite becomes a very easy game. A very simple example of this is checking every bush. You look crazy or you look psychotic, like, oh my god, you look so paranoid, like you're checking every bush, until the day comes where that guy's actually in the bush and one pumps you, which is why you must be careful. It's why you see pros literally shooting every single bush. They never walk in face first to a bush. If they do, then it's a mistake. Unfortunately, it's just a mistake. So that's one simple example, but you can extrapolate that to like any different example in Fortnite. Like it doesn't matter. It's just the idea of being paranoid at all times and assuming worst case scenario and playing around the worst case scenario, and that'll really help you.
How's some of the game sound?
Okay, so he's chasing the solo here. I mean, this is a very simple kill. This guy's pretty clueless. But at the same time, guys, like I think one factor that Mongraal does take into account, and again we'll see proof of this later, is that he takes into account the way that the enemy's facing. So we'll actually see him do some peeks if he sees that the enemy's looking at him. Otherwise, he does a lot of wide edits, and he's very, very good at that. Okay, so there's a situation here where he literally gets ambushed, 2 people on both sides, and he must run. And so he shockwaves up. Unfortunately, in our meta, in today's meta, like we're not gonna have the ability to ram out of this because ram's just too slow. When you get beam like this, you probably don't want to block the back wall here, and instead just like slowly like tarp out while blocking both sides. It's not the easiest thing to do, but as soon as you block your back wall, there's no way you're getting the edit off, right? You want to leave that open just so you can like get away from them. Like for example, I'll draw this out, right? This is actually really important. So you're getting sprayed from this side and you're getting sprayed from this side. So but if you go this way, then notice what ends up happening, right? What ends up happening is they're both in the same direction now. And so it's much more manageable because you can just hold one wall. And that's much easier. Whereas you're getting pinched, like you want to just move out of the way, right? And this is very useful in endgame too. But yeah, like just getting out of the way is super, super important. I think a lot of people underrate that. You just want to move. If you just sit still in that situation, like obviously they're never going to stop spraying. Because it's a really good situation for them. Goes up, naturally. If they want to chase him and actually want to fight him, then they're going to have to go up and match him. That's going to be a really easy way to separate them. I don't think he needs to chase them, like full heal, right? Full heal, play for your kill. I think that's what the cut does. Like he just goes for the full heal and the kill. This is a slight mistake. I think it's too... isn't there an enemy right here? Like enemy's in the top left, right? Like enemy has to be here. If that's true, then he's in a really sketch spot. But let's see. He ends up just... Oh, the enemy's on the low ground. Okay. If enemy's on low ground, it's not that bad. But you definitely... Oh my... Holy shit, bro. That caught me off guard. This is fucking crazy.
I'm on another level.
Okay, so I mean... This edit was a little scary, but it's the same idea. Like, I do see some pros doing this, and the justification is you take the first trade because you have heals. Like, if it messes up, it's fine. And it's in the name of getting that quick dead, as people say. Like, you want to get that quick dead, and you want to make sure that you have that opportunity. And so if you're a really, really good aimer, again, ironically, Mongraal misses here. But if you're a really, really good aimer and you feel confident in your shotgun shot, then you take these, like, 50-50 trades. But it's, at the end of the day, it's not really a 50-50 because you feel confident in your ability to actually hit the shot. But he does miss here. And it is on the left hand, like it's fully ego, right? Fully ego. That guy's not playing the best, 100%.
Oh my.
In general, they're not playing the best.
Oh my.
But there are some people that do put some challenge to Mongraal in the middle of this video. So this, I'm not even gonna talk about this guy, dude. Like, God. This is a good example, actually. Okay, so. Really solid understanding that he's winning this angle. So just and this movement is crucial, right? So look, this is very, very important. I feel like movement is one of the underrated parts of Fortnite that people like, and I think it comes from understanding, right? So here, let me try to explain this down to you guys. So this guy's moving like this, right? You don't have your gun out currently. You don't have your gun out, and you need time to pull out your gun. So what you do to make sure that this guy cannot see you for longer is you actually need to counter strafe. And counter strafing is simply moving in the opposite direction, usually towards your left, to keep yourself hidden for longer, just so you have enough time to pull out. Because like my point is, I don't think you want to trick the trade right now because you're not ready, right? Like this angle is not going to work. You probably want something like this, right? Because he's gonna keep moving, but by the time he gets here and you move to the left to like keep himself matched, right? You want to keep him matched to the right hand, then your gun's gonna be ready then, because that's probably enough time for you to actually pull out your shotgun, right? So he cuts himself inside, he moves towards the left and keeps himself hidden, and then by the time he has the shotgun, he handshakes the trade, because it's actually a good trade for him. If you just shoot build here, you're chilling. He's good, right? And now it's over. He misses some edits. Really good idea. I mean, I think he wants to stare here or do a cone, but I think he misclicked or something. At the end of the day, like, I'm not worried about this edit. Like, oh, it's a bad edit. Dude, he hit him for 99. It doesn't matter if Mongraal gets hit and there's Siphon in the game. Even if there wasn't Siphon in the game, you do want to end the fight quickly. There is a benefit to that. And so you can literally see he got hit. And in our meta currently, other than charges, there is no one pump. The gold pumps, the gold sawtooths, hit for 165. You need to not be scared. You need to think of it as two halves in the terms of the fight. Or like any 1v1 that you take, there's two halves, right? There's a part 1 to the fight, and then there's a part 2. In part 1, you guys are both equal HP. No one has an advantage. No one's trying to like fight each other like super aggressively, because no one really has an advantage. You're kind of poking each other. You're trying to get that first trade. You're trying to really get that advantage, and you're trying to get that first hit. Once you get that first hit, which naturally will be around 100 damage, and if it's like 30, then you don't really count yourself to moving on to part 2. But if you hit them for 100 and you don't get hit, then you're in part 2 where you're 200 HP and they're 100 HP. Then in that case, handshake, like if you full piece them, handshaking a trade like where you hit them and they hit you is beneficial for the person for 200 HP. Like, pretty simple to understand. It's not that crazy. And so this is good. I mean, that guy's not even looking the right way. These guys, okay, so I will agree, some people are just bad. Like, I don't know what this guy's doing. This guy should be in pub matches. But there are some really good fights that come up, and I'm very happy about that, because he really does showcase why he's one of the best mechanical players. Okay, so you can see his orientation when he changes, and I think one reason why he does this is the same thing with the third party, right? You can hear the third party shooting, and he's also getting shot from that side. So you actually want to drop out on this side. So when you build the wall, you're blocking him, but you're also blocking the rest of the third parties. Because if you drop down on this side, you're in the middle. You don't want to be in the middle. Just keep yourself to one side and make sure that you're never pinched. Focus top down. So instead of continuing to fight the weak guy, which kind of makes sense, right? Oh, focus the weak guy. The issue is if this guy gets height, then your 1v3 becomes very hard. So you actually want to maintain height and focus top down. And so if anytime you're in duos and your teammate dies, you actually need to 1v2, height is the key, guys. Height is absolutely the key. So this guy looks like second height, goes for him. He's also kind of out of the way. He kind of farther from his teammates. Again, you see that he doesn't smack this wall. Why, guys? Why not smack this wall? This wall seems like a pretty easy access wall. Like he's made out of, like the box is made out of wood. I would say two reasons. One, the bigger reason being the fact that you, again, third party, where are the teammates, right? They're back here. They're definitely back here, right? They're in this area back here. And so if you want to avoid the third party, then move around to the side or move around back here. And then aggress. Another small reason that I would say is because there's a stair in there that's completely flipped. So you have to break 2 layers. Whereas if you break the layer here or to break the wall here, then you don't have to break through 2 layers. Again, goes back up. Uses the bounce pad and goes back up. And the funniest thing, guys, like most of these concepts, this is just proof of how ahead of his time he was, right? Like he was very talented mechanically, and actually I have to give some credit. I think in earlier seasons he would just make random edits and just didn't care, and I would agree to that. Like I think there was some flaws in his play, but dude, like you'll see some conscious thought that comes up, and I'm really excited for the fights that are coming, because some of these guys are not playing the best, but there are some decent players that he actually kills. Like these guys are just going into 1v1s, but yeah, it's not the best. Again, wide edit on the second one allows yourself to like not get the wall taken. Like that's really the goal of it. If you make windows, like sometimes look, there's 2 situations. Let's talk about this, right? Like I think this is actually a really important point. There's sometimes I feel like Mongraal may assume this, or he feels like he's editing too fast for them to react, so which is a fair point. But there's 2 scenarios which your enemy could be, and then there's 2 correct responses. Okay, so scenario number 1 is your enemy is looking at you with shotgun, right? Enemy is looking. And scenario number 2 is enemy's not looking and he's trying to get out. Okay, let's say he's trying to get out. This is it. There's no other scenario, right? He's looking at you or he's not looking at you, and that's it. That covers the entire spectrum. And so if he's looking at you, you respond to this with a peek, right? Or I mean, you want to peek, but you can make a wide edit to do it. For example, I think we could look at a perfect example. Let's just keep the text up there and just look at this example. Like you realize this edit right here isn't the problem. It's not the edit. It might be the fact that you kind of mispositioned, but I mean his peek is pretty good, to be honest. But yeah, like the reason why you want to make the wide edit here is so that your enemy can't pump your wall and take it first try, right? And then that would buy him enough time to get out. But if you make the clean cut edit like this, then your enemy cannot take the wall, and that's really, really good for you. At the same time, you can still make a peek. So you can have a wide edit and still be peeking people. So that's one thing. But if he is trying to get out, what matters here is speed. You want to edit fast, because if he's going to get out, at least hit him for one good shotgun shot on the way out. Like if he's gonna get out, at least make sure he gets punished for it, for the fact that you got a full box on him, right? So again, two scenarios. One was where he's looking at you, and one is where he's not looking at you, and you need to observe and tell which one that is. And there are some flaws with the edit that he made. I do want you guys to be ready for this. So the flaw with doing stuff like this is that as soon as you edit the first time, like you edit this tile right here to get out, someone would pump this wall immediately. It's not like that, and nowadays that's not too hard to do. So I think if he wants to full box this, instead of going like this, all he needs to do is just go around. He just needs to go like this instead of like this, and then he's good, right? Like it's such a small adjustment to make sure this enemy has zero counterplay. It's not that crazy, right? There are some things that Mongraal is doing because they're outdated, but at the same time, I think there are very, very simple and easy solutions, like kind of like workarounds that fix those counterplays. So you can't really blame Mongraal too much for this, because it's just like the season and the meta, and people didn't really realize like how to play, and so and people themselves are learning, and this will continue again, by the way. Like people will continue to get better and better at Fortnite, but the idea of like how good his aim is and what he's doing to actually make sure he's winning these 1v1s and making sure he's 1v1ing at all is all very, very important. So again, height's super important. A lot of these guys are just building up, which I wouldn't recommend, and maybe in arena some people wouldn't, but I do have some other videos, guys, like on how to box fight someone that is boxed up. Like there is a lot of examples of that, so that's not too difficult. If anything that this video should do, guys, like it should, number one, inspire you to work on your mechanics and be faster and cleaner and more accurate, because there is actually value in that. There is value, and don't let anyone tell you like to underestimate that, because I think although some people like would agree that like if you had to pick one, your game sense will be more valuable. If you had to pick one, doesn't necessarily mean that mechanics is useless. That's not the case. I think mechanics is very, very useful, and you do need good mechanics in order to be a successful pro player. There are a lot of examples of players who did not keep up mechanically and then subsequently fell off. So it's really, really important, even though I would argue they had good game sense, right? And some people who are slow and not flashy, you might think they have bad mechanics, but actually their edits and edit accuracy is good enough for them to have, I would consider, good mechanics. Really good example of this is someone like Tayson or Epic Will. Like go look at how frequently they hit their edits. They don't miss their edits often. By the way, small note, Mongraal's diagonal box fighting 2 years ago, by the way. So that's fucking crazy. He doesn't do it often, but like here, like he's scared of the wall, hops back over the wall, but just misses the reset. Does everything but the reset, but he is doing diagonal box fighting, dude. He is so out of his time. Goes up, backwards ramps.
He's resing.
This is crazy, by the way. Watch this shit. Fucking grabs the like. He denies the res, and he's in a very sketch situation. Like this team was not the worst. But yeah, like one thing you have to like agree to, I think everyone can agree to this, is even to this day and age, like Mongraal's aim was very, very spectacular. And so if there's ever something that you're like, oh, hey, what should I work on? Like what's gonna give me most value? Like I don't care how good you are at aim, dude. Like aim is so important. Like you can always work on it. There's Kovacs, there's aim maps, there's 1v1s even actually helps your aim, especially if you're consciously focusing on it, and trying to be disciplined enough to hit quality shots frequently. Like quality shots, guys, means 100 plus, 80, 90, something minimum, right? If you either miss or hit 20 or 30 often, that's not a quality shot, and that I would consider to be a throw, because you had a free opportunity to hit them like pretty hard, but your aim is just not good enough to actually do that. So this is a nice bounce pad shockwave. Just one pumps this guy, by the way. So I mean, it's just so good. And there's some crazy shit coming. I'm pretty sure.
I'm actually gonna go viral.
Audio cue, and then I'm actually gonna go viral. Yeah, you really are, dude. This guy really hits fucking 22 million. It's his most popular video by far, for good reason. I mean, it's so crazy. Like the meta has shifted so slightly, right? Like you see how he's like kind of moving forward. I mean, it's not the worst because it is kind of ego like peaking, but also I'm really not that worried about someone editing on him when no one really knew how to piece control back then. So, but yeah, like this is really good. Okay, so one thing is if the enemy's holding, it's evidence that he's looking towards you, so he knows, right? So then he pumps and then chooses to peek here instead of like doing like some random wide edit. So he chooses to peek, gets a really nice aim. That's a hard shot to hit. It's not easy because he's behind the cone. Yeah, guys, like it's just so solid because of his accuracy, both in edit accuracy and his aim. Like it's actually wonderful to watch. And I think that's what gives him the ability to fight well. Like at the end of the day, like you can't get past this. Like as much as you can learn theory, like if you do all the theory correctly, you die in a box fight, you're super safe, you're doing everything properly, resetting on time, you shoot building, you shoot resetting, you're doing all of this properly. Piece controlling. If you miss your shot, you do 0 damage. Does not matter how well you play theoretically. Like you miss your shot, you will do 0 damage. And I think Mongraal is so far in the other direction where he does not miss his shot. 154. Headshot 187. Like it just doesn't matter, right? Like you think at this point, right? Let's talk about this for a little bit. Do you really think it matters if this guy hits him? And also another point, if the first guy hits him, Mongraal will do something different for the second guy. This is important to understand. He actually makes another wide edit on the second guy because he's so comfortable because of the fact that he's still full HP. If he got hit for a lot, he would probably kill the first guy and then just move on and go back up and heal and then re-enter. So like it doesn't matter. He understands his limits because of the fact that he's wide editing. Like he gets it, right? Another thing to really keep in mind, this will matter more in nowadays meta, where like when you edit on someone, pay attention to who has their gun out first. It's very obvious in this case that this guy's behind, and so you can actually feel very comfortable and patient. Like you don't need to rush it or panic or anything. You can easily, as long as you shoot as soon as your gun's ready, shoot him and reset, and that's exactly what Mongraal does. There is a small amount of risk to it, but again, I think if you're very comfortable and experienced with the wide edit, like I'm not too worried about it. There are some people who do this as well. If you ever watch like some pros, I think I can't think of an example of someone like this era who does the wide edits, but there are definitely people. Maybe you guys in the comments can tell me someone you guys have thought of, like so who does wide edits frequently in this era. Like, oh, is he gonna one pump this guy? Oh, he might. He's laughing, dude. Fuck. Yeah, it's gonna be hard. See, like he gets hit for a small amount, but like you can see that once the enemy's looking, he starts to peek. It's like it's not that he doesn't know how to peek, he just selectively does so. There is benefit to actually doing a wide edit when your enemy's not looking because you can see more of the box, and so if they like accidentally move to the left or move to the right, they're not gonna like cover themselves and you're not gonna miss your shot. So it's if you really want to hit your shot, then sometimes doing a wide edit is super good.
You guys are making me laugh, please. You guys need to deafen, please.
Dude, he was so good back then. Isn't this the season? It's not the season where they won FNCS, was it? It was. They won in Stark season, wasn't it? Yeah, Mongraal. And he has the pickaxe, no? Yeah. Doesn't he have the pickaxe? He does. Okay, so that's literally the proof. I mean, yeah, I remember when they won FNCS. It was fucking insane. I mean, this is where like, yeah, he's peeking a little bit here. That wall's too weak. I would, so people were not so scared of weak walls back then. I think no one really cared that much about weak walls. But I think in this meta, you absolutely need to care. People have noticed health bars by now. So people have really started to look at this number. It took 3 years. It took 3 years for people to notice this. But we are in that stage now. So I think you need to get into that habit of like, hey, 1 edit per wall. Once I reset, maybe I need to reset the HP or do a wide edit on the second edit. So it's much more difficult for the enemy to actually pump the wall or take it by accident or even try to take it intentionally. Just make it hard for them, right? Because that's why wide edits come into play. Like on the second edit when the wall's weak, like you probably want to make it harder for them to actually hit the shot on the wall. So yeah, guys, like health bars on the walls, like they start to matter now. I don't think I think no one really cared back then. Like, this guy's not pumping it. Mongraal had long, like, I mean, this guy's not the best, to be honest. But I mean, there is something to be said with how frequently he's just hitting 100. And that's not easy to do even nowadays. It's so funny that we've progressed 2 years and it's not the easiest thing to do to just hit 100 over 99% of the time, which I would say Mongraal is definitely at that stage, which is just crazy, dude. Okay, I mean, in this specific instance, he's noticing 2 teams, 1 team on bottom right low ground and 1 team on top left high ground. So he kind of needs to, which yeah, he's gonna tarp. So there you go. Like, he's definitely tarping over. We're trying to make sure, like, he's very conscious of the like, he wants the key, but he can't necessarily do that if there's like enemies here. So it's really just taking it slow. Sees a straggler over here, so tries to go for him. I think he heard something, so he can't necessarily continue. It's just too many third parties to be on height here, low-key. There is a tree covering him on the right side, so maybe he'll use that. Dude, this scar was crazy. Why isn't he using the pulse rifle, by the way? Did he just not find one, or was there not one this season? Like, I swear there's pulse rifle. Hello? He must have not found one. Or was the gold scar better than the pulse rifle? Do you guys remember? I actually don't. Oh, this was insane, by the way. I mean, this guy's absolutely trolling, and there's gonna be less people doing this sort of shit nowadays. But yeah. But I think, like, the only adjustments you need to make, by the way, is, like, obviously punish people that do this, and people won't do this naturally. But a couple of adjustments that Mongraal needs to make. Actually, I would say he doesn't need to place a cone in his box, believe it or not. Like, look where he's standing. Do you think a stair placed here would actually block him? I don't think so. I think you actually purposely stand in the middle of the tile in order to not get stared. And so sometimes you need to realize that you can get away with not coning, because sometimes coning is too slow. So you need to just stand in the right spot. What is the right spot? Probably center of your tile, right? So that way you can't, like, if you're standing too far left, you can get stared off, sideways stare by someone. If you're standing too far back, you can get ramped off. But if you're standing in the position where Mongraal is, I would say it's not even full center. It's probably like somewhere in the front 2/3 of the box, where if someone places a ramp, it's either gonna phase you or it's gonna place behind you, and so you're still gonna have the freedom to hit that shot and reset. And that's the goal. As long as you're not standing in, like, behind the halfway point of your box, I think you're fine. So Mongraal does this frequently. I've body beat him in the past, like a year ago, and he just stands in the middle of his box. That's why he doesn't cone that often. Now, I'm not saying don't cone. I'm saying there's instances where coning is too slow and you'd rather find the shot. Does that make sense? So it is a good habit to cone when you can, but sometimes it's just better to not cone. Because there's a rush to go for the shot. And in some instances, if you want to place a backwards ramp, because there is benefit to placing a backwards ramp, it's better to have a box with no cone, right? Because then you get backwards ramp, which is a full HP build, like it's a healthier build than flipping a cone. So there is benefit to sometimes doing it. It's situational, but for the most part, it's a niche situation. I would say you probably want to cone most of the time, and in some cases where you like have to urgently go for a shot, it's better to stand in the right spot. So it's still useful information in that regard. Spray through the weak wall. The Mongraal knows weak walls, but the enemies don't. So there is that. Okay. God damn it, man. Dude, it's like I played during the season, you know what I mean? Like, I played competitively, and I remember, like, it's so crazy. Like, if you just knew this shit back then, you know what I mean? Like, how good you would be. But at the same time, like, Mongraal's mechanics is really good, and I think this is the proof of it. So, guys, like, how do you do this, right? Like, like, what's the secret? Like, how do you get this good? It's very easy, and I know the secret. It's very easy to know what to do. It's a matter of people don't have access. So I'll explain what I mean. How do you get good mechanically? How do you get good fighting? First step is to understand. So I think you guys are doing that already. You're watching the videos, you're trying to understand the theory. Theory is not the difficult part. You have access to that. So what's the next part? What are the 2 things that you need to truly be successful at fighting and mechanics, and like be really, really good at both? So I would say you need 2 things. First thing is to have absolute resilience and to continue playing even if you lose. Right? So your ability to lose 1,000 times in a row and still want to train is really important. And I think a lot of people don't have this, right? Now, you can get angry, but just don't quit. That's what I care about. Number 2, have a partner that is better than you. This is the hard part. This is what I don't necessarily have a solution for all of you, because sometimes you just don't have the connections to like find this type of person. But if you do, like if you have this type of connection and you're lucky enough to have a friend who's much better than you, or you know, moderately better than you, it's basically someone that's going to challenge you, right? If you have the privilege of having that and you're not abusing it, then you are absolutely trolling. You need to 1v1 that person 500 times a day. I'm not joking. This is the easiest way to get value from getting better at mechanics and getting value from 1v1s and just being better at the game mechanically, right? And also to your ability to actually apply the theory, because every time you mess up slightly in the theory, then this person will actually punish you, and that's the good thing. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. If it ruins your morale, then you need to just mature. Like at the end of the day, this is training, and so losing is just going to be a part of the process. And so I have proof of this. Like I have students who have worked with me for like 4 months straight. By the way, 80% of the time that they work with me, we're just 1v1ing. You know what ends up happening? They get to the point where they can beat me half the time, and previously they were at the point where they could not touch me, right? And so how did that happen? 4-month transformation. It's because they just, two things. They have the connection, right? So they have me. And they also have the resilience to train every single day despite losing to me. Like they're just going to lose over and over and over, obviously because they're not so good at the beginning, but because of the fact that they're just going to happen to be like they're forced to improve, right? Like literally, if you want to improve, you just have to fix your mistakes. And I think the best way to do that is to be in a forced situation where who you're fighting is literally an unstoppable wall that will not break unless you start doing the right things, right? That way there's not this false positive feedback loop where you're doing wrong things or you're doing stuff that would get you killed, but you're getting away with it because you're fighting some shitter, and you're fighting someone that like one of your weak friends who you're just trying to beat up on to gain some confidence boost or something. Like you're trying to really get an ego boost from it. But at the end of the day, if you put your ego aside, you humble yourself, and you really just understand that losing is the path to getting better, like fundamentally, because if you're not losing, then you're not fighting someone good enough, then you will absolutely improve. It's just reality, guys. It's so like crazy how simple it is. It's easy to know how to do it, but it's not easy to have the connection to do it. It sucks, but at the end of the day, you need a connection to do it. I would say ranked is decent, but at the end of the day, ranked is not good for improvement. Rank is a test. To study, you don't play ranked, because ranked takes 10 to 15 minutes to loot up to actually fight someone. And I think solo arena or ranked or whatever you want to call it is really, really important to leave at the end. You're going to use it to evaluate where you're at, not use it to train. Creative is there for a reason. Use creative to train. Just fight someone that's willing to try hard against you and is actually much better than you. That's what you need, and you need to not give up. If you do that, I promise you your mechanics will improve within a month. And I know, oh, a month, it's a long time. Listen, if you can't wait a month for some results, then like you need to find a new pursuit. Like you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like if you're trying to improve at something, especially something that everyone else is equally trying as hard as you, right? They like, don't be complacent to the fact that like, hey, I'm the most passionate person, like I care more than everyone else. Not true. Clearly not true. There are people who are fighting for your dream. Like they absolutely want to become pro as well. And some people who are pros currently have proved like they've done the hard work, right? Like then they got to that point. And so if you really want to become a pro, you need to realize that you're fighting against other people who are also trying to become pro as hard as possible. And so if you're like worried about how long it's going to take, or if you're worried about winning, or like, hey, I can't take losing, then you're just not cut out for it at the end of the day. Like you have to accept that. Let's watch a couple of these fights. I mean, there's not that much in these fights here, but if you want to become like Mongraal and see the talent that he has, like what do you think he did? What do you think he did? He wagered? He did wager, and wager kids naturally get good. Mero and Day, who do you think they were, guys, before they became competitive players? They were wager kids. And what do wager kids get? They have an addiction to wagering, so they play a lot, right? They just like, oh, I want to win the next one. I want to win the next one. I just keep repeatedly playing. And they fundamentally put themselves against challenging people, because the people on the other side are people who are naturally equal skill, because no one's going to want to wager you if they know they're worse. And there's money on the line, so all parties are trying as hard as possible, and that's a good environment in improvement. That's really, really good. You're challenging yourself. Mero and Day have won FNCSs. They have, and I think this is very obvious with the formula. Donnie is still a wager kid. He still plays Zone Wars. Kanata is a wager kid. There's just too many examples, man. And I think like you have to realize like the advice to play ranked to get improvement is like a little bit outdated. It used to be really, really good, but I think it's definitely outdated now. Instead, if you want to use your time wisely, you have to use creative, and you need to find someone that's willing to absolutely destroy you and just fight them. If you're in the middle of the pack, you're not the best, like you're not some tier 2, tier 1 pro, like if you just find someone on vital scrims 1v1, like I promise you, you'll find some decent players there. And then when you find someone that's actually good, like who's challenging you, add him. Get your connections. If you're really that desperate to actually become really, really good, just like Mongraal here, then you need to put some effort outside of the game in order to make sure that happens. If your issue is, hey, I know the theory, I don't know how, I'm not used to implementing it, go fight someone that forces you to implement it. Otherwise, you will lose forever. You know what I mean? It's a really good environment to, and my proof of like why it works is every student that I've worked with long term, literally. I'm not kidding. Like my first student, Supero, who got really, really good before he even met me. Like this credit goes to him. He was a wager kid. He beat Asian Jeff. He was a wager kid. Right? Okay. At the end of the day, I think we learned, like, there's a lot of repeats here, but I mean, by the way, how does Mongraal win this game? There is a small mistake he makes, and I think if he doesn't make this mistake, he can win this game. So look, he realizes, okay, no one below him. I think you guys can agree with me on this. This guy, and there's like one other guy below him, right? There's 4 people total. These guys are not threats to Mongraal, right? I agree fully. I think this is fair. Like, he's not gonna threaten you. He's not threatening you by holding you. He's not threatening you by shooting you out. Just not a threat to you. But if you look at who's in front side, there's an enemy front side. This guy. You need to get ahead right now. If you stay back here this high up, and this guy does 290s and then looks to spray at you, if you're not out of here by the time he sprays at you, you're dead. You can't stay back here and start spraying this guy when he's ahead. He has the tempo, right? Like, if you spray at him and you do 100 damage and this guy just ignores your damage and starts spraying at you instead, or like selectively just waits until a storm gets on you and then starts spraying you, you know what I mean? Then you're just done. Like, when this guy's distracted and he's about to establish new height in front side, you just need to bounce pad right now. So the idea is you're going to be floating and you're exposed, but you're not going to be shot at because this guy's busy doing 90s. But as soon as the 90s are complete, you're doomed. But he ends up living here, and I think at this point he needs to prioritize getting ahead. So this is actually a common theme. You'll see it in some of my other videos. I always say this: positioning is more important than HP and healing or any other priority. Positioning is most important. And so if you're getting held, it's probably too late. Like you messed up earlier somewhere in positioning. Oftentimes you'll see situations where, let's say there's a teammate that's weak in my duo. Let's say my teammate is weak. I would rather him get like run with 100 HP white. And get to front side and then pop the minis there instead of popping minis backside and then get jumped by a duo. Does that make sense? Like, basically you need to prioritize your positioning, and once your positioning is solved, then doing all of the other priorities makes a lot more sense. This is true in most cases. I'm sure there's an exception, as there is an exception with most rules, but this is a really good rule that will apply to most scenarios. So this is a really good scenario that it applies to, and there are a lot of situations where I would say it applies to as well. I can show you a bunch of examples in some of the videos coming out this week, so hopefully you guys see those and see exactly what I'm talking about. I think he ends up losing to this guy, but I think like a lot of the trouble comes from his mat count getting absolutely burned from the guy from height. But yeah, these are macro concepts in endgame that like I'm sure that it was completely foreign. It was foreign to me back then. Like no one knew this shit. I mean, it seems pretty simple, but like, yeah, like you just don't want to shoot this guy. There's no way after he gets up on height, you're just doomed. Like, it's just too high, man. Yeah, guys, like, the value of aim and mechanics, I think you hopefully not only has this video inspired you to be fast and as good as Mongraal is, and to play sharper in terms of your concept, because there are some concept that he uses, but at the end of the day, I hope you guys actually work on your mechanics, and I think it'll provide some value, guys. It's not by chance that most wager players go on to become pro players. It's not by chance, and the pattern is simple. They fight people that challenge them, and they don't care about losing. Maybe they do, but they don't give up. Maybe they get mad if they lose, but they don't give up. They don't stop. They keep fighting. And Asian Jeff is a wager kid. He's a pro player now. Mero, Day, no really did wagers. Like, there's just too many examples, man. Mitro, Mongraal. Even if it wasn't wagers, Mitro, Mongraal fought 1v1s constantly in creative, and that's how you get good. You need volume, but you need quality volume, and those aren't they're not mutually exclusive. You don't need to lose one to gain one. You can absolutely have both at the same time. And so if you can find a partner that's willing to 1v1 you 500 times a day, and you can fight them repeatedly for 4 hours a day and just get thrashed, you will improve. I promise you. Just go do it and try to, like, you don't have to VOD of you, but just think about what you're doing wrong while you're doing it, right? Come up with good solutions. And if you're ever confused about what the theory is like and like, hey, what should I do instead in this situation, or how do I box fight properly, then this channel is absolutely the place for you. Like, I have all types of videos that tell you exactly how to do that. So guys, if you have enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, leave a comment down below on whether this type of video was good or in general, and like hopefully I've motivated you guys. Like, for anyone that is in the comments or watching this video that wants to become a pro, I just gave you the sauce on how to do it. Like, this is how you do it. Go do the work. If you don't have someone that is going to challenge you, I told you, like, you know exactly how to do it. Go into scrim servers and just start DMing. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, you know what you need to do. But otherwise, I'll keep uploading consistently, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Peace.